Morning people, welcome back to F Politics. My favourite thing about Nigel Farage is always going to be the fact that he calls his own supporters stupid every time he goes on TV. Because he'll say one thing and then minutes, if not seconds later, say the exact opposite thing. So he's giving his supporters everything that they need to know that he's lying to them, while at the same time effectively saying, I know you're still going to believe me. He's being more insulting to the intelligence of right-wing voters than any sneering, arrogant lefty ever could be. Because today on BBC Laura Kuenssberg, a show which is just dripping with diversity, the main topic was how water companies are still pumping sewage into our waterways. And this is the solution that Nigel Farage offers for how public services could be run better.
We need more people running government with genuine business experience.
So Nigel Farage's message is that we need people with proper experience to run government and that will save us money. Funny you should say that.
A 19-year-old in your party is now the leader of Warwickshire Council in charge of a budget of £500 million. He wants to spend £190,000 on hiring political assistants. Is that a good use of taxpayers' money?
Does it, George Finch? Does he need some professional political figures around him? You bet your life he does.
So in this interview, Nigel Farage has said that he's going to save government money by bringing in people who have the experience to do the job well, but seconds later, he acknowledged that he brought in an 18-year-old into government who he says does not have the experience because they're going to need an extra £200,000 worth of political advisors. Make it make sense.
This is going to be a very big battle against the existing bureaucracies that exist in these councils who've been running bad practice for years.
Okay, so Nigel Farage's message there is, I'm going to save us money by cutting red tape and getting rid of all the additional rules that slow things down and cost us money. When's the last time he said that? Oh yes, Brexit, when he said he would cut red tape and save small businesses lots of money. What happened to small businesses? They were drowned in red tape because of Brexit. Something I warned him about personally.
The regulations that get put on small businesses are hardly a benefit in my view.
By leaving the single market, it makes it by definition more expensive to trade into the EU because you have to adapt your products to the legislation of 28 different countries where the rule is mutual recognition. If you were a smaller company, that means it's harder for you to trade into Europe.
And now small businesses are struggling to operate because of his Brexit red tape. But carry on.
In Lincolnshire, for example, where the council's got rid of the floods committee, except there have been floods.
Yeah, well, who says the flood committee would do any good?
Okay, so here we've got Trump's little pet bragging about how he's getting rid of flood defenses. How well did that go for Trump? You know how Trump cut financial support for emergency weather services, and then there were massive floods that devastated Texas. But it's his rationale here that really gets me.
Yeah, I mean, there is this assumption that you appoint committees, you launch inquiries, you do all these things, and they actually lead to any results.
The man who has spent the last year saying we need to have a national inquiry into grooming gangs, while other people were saying that we should just implement the recommendations of the previous inquiries, is now saying that inquiries basically do nothing. Once again, Nigel Farage is giving his supporters the ability to mark his homework. Like, whether you agree with having a grooming gangs inquiry or not, you can't spend a year saying that inquiries are necessary to make progress and then say that inquiries basically do nothing. Unless, of course, you think the people who follow you are too stupid to notice that inconsistency. But carry on.
What about Scarborough Town Council, which has given
no idea.
Well, I can tell you.
No idea.
Well,
That seems suspicious, saying I have no idea before she's even asked you an actual question. That's like when the police pull up and you're like, I didn't do it. Sorry, do what? It's almost like he knows exactly what she's going to say and is using ignorance as a defense.
I can tell you what's happened there, and I can ask you whether you think this is the right thing to do. Scarborough Town Council has given its reform mayor a 600% pay rise.
I have no idea.
You don't know?
Whether what you say is true or not, I have no idea.
So is that the right thing to do in principle?
I have no idea. It's a town council, 600%. What's it from sort of...
It's a small amount. It was a payment of £500 up to £3,500, which I know you're going...
I don't know. Is he doing it or she doing it as a full-time job? I have no idea.
Now, obviously, a 600% increase in the mayor's salary doesn't exactly match up with a guy who says he's trying to save council's money, or with somebody who's always attacked the political elite in Brussels because of how much they earn. But I want to focus on the tactic he's using here, the I don't know defense. Because while it might be obvious to those of us who don't like Nigel Farage that this is simply a tactic to avoid answering the question, for those of you who are inclined to take Nigel Farage's side, I want to drive this home for you. Because this is not the first time that people in Nigel Farage's party have done things that are clearly wrong, and so to avoid accountability, Nigel Farage has pretended not to know about it. Because he responded the exact same way when he was asked about one of his MPs repeatedly beating his girlfriend.
Whether there are discrepancies or not, I don't know. What I know is he's a fine young man who's turned out really very, very well.
But for the
He's a serving
victim,
member of Parliament.
for him to imply that she was pushed over when the court document says he kicked her, that's difficult for the victim, isn't it?
I'll believe anything you say.
It's not what I say, it's what the court document says.
I haven't read
it's not what I said, it's a court document.
I don't know, it's 20 years ago.
But obviously he did know, because the court transcript said that Reform MP James McMurdoch kicked his girlfriend 4 times as she lay on the ground. But Farage pretended not to know so that he could keep supporting his party members regardless of what they do. And that's the exact same move he just tried to play with Scarborough Council, even though he answered the question before it had even been put to him. And then we get to climate change.
It is absolutely mindless for a country that produces less than 1% of global CO2 to beggar itself.
Okay, so your logic is that because the UK makes up less than 1% of global carbon emissions, then it's not really our job to put ourselves out to solve the climate crisis. But the UK makes up less than 0.8% of the world's population. So if we're putting out 1% of the world's carbon emissions, that means we're polluting more than the average population, which actually means we have a greater than average responsibility to solve the climate crisis. And you actually strengthen the point that I just made by saying this.
And we haven't actually helped reduce global CO2 emissions, we've just exported it.
And he's right. So much of the stuff that we consume in the UK is made in places like China, so all the carbon emissions happen there, and so it goes on their carbon footprint when really it belongs to us. So if you were to ask how much carbon is the UK truly responsible for, it's probably a hell of a lot more than 1%. So you see how both of the things that Nigel Farage just said about climate change are actually arguments to further decarbonize our economy and the connected supply routes. But Nigel Farage knows that his supporters aren't going to go Googling, is the UK population more or less than 1% of the world's population? So by making these points, he's once again calling his own supporters stupid. The question is, when will they finally hear him? I'm Femi. Make sure you follow F Politics so politics doesn't F you. Have a great week.